If you see, ARVC is basically a genetic cardiomyopathy which is characterized by fibrofatty replacement of the RV musculature, ventricular arrhythmias, and RV failure. So ARVD first recognized in 1977 is an inherited cardiomyopathy mostly due to mutations in both desmosomal and non-desmosomal genes. ARVD is considered as a leading cause of sudden cardiac death in young people and the athletes. It is characterized by abnormality in the development of the RV musculature. The final diagnosis of ARVD was initially pathologically made based on the findings characterized by fibrofatty infiltration and cardiomyocyte loss predominantly affecting the RV. So the name ARVD was first coined in 1978 by Frankenfontaine. In 1996, the WHO and the IFSC decided the ARVD has to be considered as a manifestation of the cardiomyopathy. So the terminology changed from ARVD to ARVC. If you see incidence and prevalence wise, it's basically a disease of a young adult people with a male to female ratio of 2.7:1. The prevalence of the disease in the general population is estimated to be 0.02 to 0.1%. With increasing in the diagnostic modalities, the prevalence will be increased. 80% of the disease is diagnosed in patients younger than 40 years. ARVD should be suspected in all young patients presenting to us with syncope or ventricular tachycardia or cardiac arrest. So pathophysiology, just a brief discussion, is basically a progressive disease in which the normal myocardium is replaced by the fatty tissue, usually RV, but LV might also be involved. It begins mainly in this. To begin with, it involves the subepicardium and mid-mural layers and progresses to the subendocardium. There is a triangle of dysplasia. The three sites which are most commonly involved is the RVOT, apex, and the inferior wall near the tricuspid valve. Because of the involvement, there are islands of scar which are formed in the RV, which leads to reentrant VT and which increases the risk of sudden cardiac death. So we will just go. As discussed previously, both desmosomal and non-desmosomal genes can be involved. We'll just have a brief discussion on the desmosomal protein structure. The desmosome is a multi-protein complex forming the intercellular junctions. These constitute protein are desmosomal cadherins, including the desmogleins and the desmocholine, armadillo proteins, including the plakophilin and the plakoglobin, and the plakin protein, the desmoplakin. Any mutation in any of the five can cause ARVC phenotype. 8 genes account for the majority of the pathogenic or likely pathogenic variants in the ARVC, including 5 desmosomal genes and the 3 non-desmosomal genes. Up to 50 to 60% of the ARVC cases are thought to be caused by variants affecting the genes that are encode desmosomal protein. In particular, PKP2 gene is reported to account for between 20 to 46% of the clinical cases of the ARVC, whereas the DSP and DSG2 account for 10% each, and DSC2 account for 5%. So the ARVC can occur as an isolated cardiomyopathy, or it can occur in the form of syndromes also, which mainly involves the skin, palmar-plantar keratosis or hairs, the woolly hairs. Those syndromes are mainly again classified as Carvajal or the Naxos disease syndrome, based upon the RV involvement or the left ventricular involvement. Clinical presentation. The RVC is a disease that may have a temporal progression, and the disease may present differently according to the time of presentations. A symptomatic form with transient or sustained ventricular tachycardia of LVV morphology, although RVV morphology can also be observed. I mean, if the patient has predominantly an ALVC phenotype, we can have a VT of RVV morphology even though. Asymptomatic form consisting of PVCs, RV failure with or without arrhythmias, a masked form in which sudden death usually during exercise is the first clinical presentation. In 1994, the task force criteria were being laid down for the diagnosis of the ARVD, which can be majorly divided into 6 categories: global and regional RV dysfunction and structural alteration, mainly recognized on echo; tissue characterization of the walls, mainly done by endomyocardial biopsy; ECG criteria, which can further be divided into repolarization abnormalities and depolarization abnormalities; arrhythmias; and family history. So severe dilatation and reduction of RV ejection fraction with no or mild LV impairment, localized RV aneurysms, akinetic or dyskinetic areas with diastolic bulging, severe segmental dilatation of the RV. They were considered as a major criteria. Minor criteria included mild global RV dilatation or ejection fraction reduction with normal LV, mild segmental RV dilatation or regional RV hypokinesia. Tissue characterization of the of the ARVC included fibrofatty replacement of myocardium on endomyocardial biopsy. Repolarization abnormalities included T wave inversions in the anterior precordial leads in children more than 4 or after 12 years of age. Depolarization conduction abnormalities included epsilon waves or localized prolongation of the QRS in the anterior precordial leads, arrhythmias mainly of the LVB morphology, family history. So diagnostic criteria would be fulfilled by the presence of 2 major criteria or 1 major plus 2 minor criteria or 4 minor criteria. So if you see the involvement of the LV was not considered in the 1994 task force criteria, and the cardiac MRI findings were not being given any importance. So we'll just go in brief in each of the criteria. So fibrofatty replacement of the myocardium on the endomyocardial biopsy. So it is basically a less sensitive criteria, and the limitation is that we take the biopsy from the septal side, and in ARVC the part of the RV which is more frequently involved is the free wall. So the tissue which we have taken for a biopsy may not show the finding, but it will be a false negative. The sensitivity of the test will be less, and if you see, it is a non-specific also, because the fibrofatty replacement we can see in healthy individuals also, more than 50% of the elderly people, or long-term or in the people with on long-term therapy with the steroids, other cardiomyopathies or idiopathic VTs. So it's basically a non-specific criteria and very less sensitive. Repolarization abnormalities, T-wave inversions in right precordial leads in V2 and V3, people aged more than 2 years in the absence of the RBBB. Depolarization abnormalities, epsilon waves or localized prolongation of the QRS complex in the right precordial leads. In 2020, Padua criteria were being laid down for the diagnosis of the ARVC. Basically, they involved the involvement of the LV and the cardiac MRI findings in the classification and in the diagnosis of the ARVC. Criteria proposed for the ARVC in 1994 and revised in 2010 by a task force. Although the task force criteria demonstrated a good accuracy for diagnosis of the original ARVC phenotype, they lacked sensitivity for identification of the expanding phenotypic spectrum of the ACM, which included left-sided variants and did not incorporate LG findings by the cardiac MRI. So the 2022 Padua criteria has been developed by the international experts with the aim to improve the diagnosis of the ACM by providing new criteria for the diagnosis of the LV phenotypic features. The key upgrade was in incorporation of the tissue characterization findings by the cardiac MRI for non-invasive detection of the LG or myocardial fibrosis that are determinants for the cardiac characterization of the arrhythmogenic biventricular and LV variants. New criteria regarding LV depolarization and repolarization ECG abnormalities and ventricular arrhythmias of LV origin were also provided. So if you see here, the criteria were in the same in the same 6 parameters only, but the cardiac MRI findings are also being included in the major criteria. In last year, in 2024, the European Task Force criteria were being laid down, in which the arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy was divided into 3 main phenotypes. The classical ARVC phenotype, also referred to as the dominant right phenotype, characterized by RV involvement with no detectable LV abnormalities. Arrhythmogenic biventricular phenotype, characterized by the involvement of the RV and the LV, also commonly called as the ABVC. And the arrhythmogenic left ventricular phenotype, also referred to as the dominant LV phenotype, characterized by LV involvement with no detectable RV abnormalities. The proposed criteria represent a refinement of the 2020 Padua criteria with particular reference to the identification of the non-genetic diseases that may fulfill the diagnostic criteria for the ACM, mostly the left-sided variants. Given the increased awareness of the importance to diagnose the left-sided variants of ACM, the growing recognition of the diagnostic value of cardiac MRI for the detection of myocardial LV, LGE, scar, and the additional diagnostic role of LV ECG criteria and ventricular arrhythmias of LV origin, it was an urgent need to gather internationally recognized experts to revise and standardize the clinical diagnosis of the entire phenotypic spectrum of the ACM. So if you see here, the diagnostic criteria were being formed separately for the RV phenotype and the LV phenotype, and they were given, again being described in detail. ECG abnormalities, the repolarization and the depolarization abnormalities, they were also being separately given for the ARVC phenotype, the ALVC phenotype. We have discussed the repolarization abnormalities of the ARVC phenotype. If you see the ALVC phenotype, negative T wave inversions in the negative in the left precordial leads, V4 to V6 in the absence of the complete LVBB. Depolarization criteria, if you talk about the low QRS voltages in all the limb leads in the absence of other causes. Arrhythmias, till now we knew that okay, arrhythmias with LVB morphology, that is ARVC, no, but frequently if you find an RVB, we can find an RVB morphology arrhythmia also, which is which can be sustained or non-sustained. So it's just a flow chart for the clinical identification of the arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy etiology. So we get them tested genetically. If it's a pathogenic desmosomal gene variant is positive, it is called as a desmosomal gene related arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. If pathogenic non-desmosomal gene variant is positive, it will be non-desmosomal gene related arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. If the family screening is positive, but negative molecular genetic testing, it is called as a familial gene elusive arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. And if identification of non-genetic causes, it is called as an acquired arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy or a idiopathic arrhythmogenic cardiomyopathy. So ECG findings say we can see a late potential after the QRS. It's an epsilon wave, just one line about epsilon wave. ECG abnormalities can be observed in almost 90% of the patients with ARVC. The ECG in patients with ARVC usually shows in sinus rhythm the QRS duration more than 110 millisecond in lead V1 with a terminal deflection within or at the end of the QRS complex in leads V1 to V3. In up to 30% of the patients we can see the epsilon wave, and inversion of the T waves in the right precordial leads V1 to V3, 50 to 70% of the patients. Here we can see the T wave inversions, not just limited to lead V1 but V2, V3. Epsilon waves again. So ECG findings, complete RBBB is found in approximately 15% of the patients and incomplete RBBB in 18% of the patients with the ARVC. In the presence of an RBBB pattern, selective prolongation of the QRS duration in leads V1 to V3 compared to lead V6, also known as parietal block, is an important hallmark for the ARVC. So the ratio of QRS duration in leads V1 to V3 versus V4 to V6 more than 1.2, and prolonged S wave upstroke in V1 to V3 more than 55 millisecond in the absence of right RBBB is considered significant. If you see here, the QRS duration in lead V1 is more as compared to the V6. The right ventricular parietal block, as evidenced by a QRS duration in V1 to V3, is longer than that seen in the V4 to V6 lead. VT. The VTs which we see in the ARVC phenotype is mainly LVBB morphology, which can be both outflow tract and non-outflow tract. The axis can be superior axis or it can be inferior axis. If it's an inferior axis, then it means that the RVOT is the main site of the origin. If it's a superior axis, that it means that it is coming from the RV inferior wall. The patients in ARVC can present with symptomatic RV arrhythmias during exercise, and they can even present as a sudden cardiac death while going to the gym or like during exertion. So in this slide we can see both the ARVC phenotype and the ALVC phenotype. The upper panel represents the ARVC phenotype and the lower panel represents the ALVC phenotype. So the patients present, so we'll first discuss the upper panel. The patient present to us with a LBBB morphology VT after DC cardioversion, that is a sinus rhythm, in which we can see T wave inversions in lead V1 to V4 with prolonged terminal activation duration in lead V1 and epsilon wave. If you talk about the ALVC phenotype, we'll see that the patient is having an VT morphology, RBBB morphology VT. After DC version, we can see the low QRS voltages in the limb leads and T wave inversions in the lateral precordial leads. So any patient presenting to us in the emergency with an outflow tract VT, it is very important for us to differentiate between an idiopathic RVOT VT versus RVOT VT secondary to ARVD, because the patients with an RVOT VT secondary to ARVD will not have a good result of doing an EP study, and whereas an idiopathic RVOT VT can have are supposed to have very good results after doing an EP study RF ablation. So any idiopathic RVOT VT, there will be no history of sudden cardiac death in any of the family member, or RVOT VTs, idiopathic RVOT VT are very less likely to cause sudden cardiac death. Whereas in ARVD patients, you can find family history of sudden cardiac death, or these VTs can lead to sudden cardiac death. After DC cardioversion, you can see the sinus rhythm ECG. Which can show T wave inversions in V1 and beyond V3 in case of ARVD, whereas this is not the case with the idiopathic RVOT VT. And most important, you should get an echo and an MRI done for any patient before labeling it as an idiopathic RVOT VT. So in the case of idiopathic RVOT VT, the echo will be normal, MRI will be normal. Most of the times it will say no LGE. Whereas in the case of the ARVD, you can find the patient will have echo findings related to the ARVD, which includes the increased RV size or some wall motion abnormalities, or in the MRI, the patients might have some significant LGE. So this just nowadays we don't do an RV angiogram to diagnose ARVC, just it's showing that aneurysm is there in the RVOT. So echo criteria, which can further be divided into, we'll just discuss in brief the echocardiographic criteria. So further divided into major criteria, minor criteria and supportive criteria. So getting into the minor criteria, if we talk about the major criteria, which includes the severe dilatation and reduction of the RV ejection fraction, or localized RV impairment or aneurysms, or severe segmental dilatation of the RV, which can further be if we talk about the RVOT dimensions, we see the RVOT dimensions in the short axis view and the long axis view. In the long axis view, more than 32 mm is considered as significant and included in the major criteria. If the short axis view, more than 36 mm is considered to be a major criteria, or ejection fraction area change less than 33% is considered as a major criteria. If we talk about the minor criteria, mild global RV dilatation or ejection fraction reduction with normal LV, mild segmental dilatation of the RV, or regional RV hypokinesia, all these are considered to be a minor criteria. So just a few echo images. If you see here, the RVOT dimension in the plex view is 30 mm, which is significant. RVOT dimension in the short axis view, RVOT is significantly dilated. In the third image, you can see the RV apical dyskinesia and aneurysm. In the fifth image, you can see a hyperechogenic moderator band, which is a supportive criteria. So role of MRI has been described in the recent criteria. So management strategies for the ARVC, will not go in much detail about it, but lifestyle modification, sudden cardiac death and intense exertion in young individuals with ARVC is common, and physical exercise is a factor promoting development and progression of the ARVC phenotype. And it is recommended no competitive or endurance sports for the ARVC patients who are already diagnosed. And therapy wise, three approaches are being considered. Arrhythmia management, which includes the antiarrhythmic drugs, amiodarone, beta blockers and sotalol are the most commonly used drugs in India. Cardiac defibrillator, catheter ablation only for the patients who are refractory, who are having refractory VT on medical management. So RV failure management, if the patient presents to us with RV failure, or thromboembolic management. Take home message: exercise increases the arrhythmic risk and structural dysfunction progression. Lifestyle modification is most important, which is being advised to the patients. Endomyocardial biopsy and diagnostic EP study practically are of no use. Genetic testing results to be used with a pinch of salt. Amiodarone along or in combination with beta blocker, most effective drug therapy. And ICD is advised. Catheter ablation is not recommended as an alternative to AICD. Thank you.